I'm going to step away to do a quick audio check on the stream. Okay, perfect.
Well, what's up, guys? Kamikaze Fox coming to you once again from SRL Season 9, Round 17, the Italian Grand Prix here at Monza. I got the cat chiropractor with me, Brian, alongside.
Yes,
Going to
happy to
be
be here.
reviewing
It's
today's action.
a nice open field. No Jensen Randall, no Logan Oren.
Yeah, big talking point today is who's get to walk away with the win without two of the big players involved. Jensen Randall not making today's race. Logan Arand is taking a sabbatical, we'll say. And that leaves the field open to everybody else. We'll run down the driver lineup here. We got Sandro Dulius rocking the Ferrari. This is one of Sandro's worst tracks. Never has good luck here. Over the years, he's had everything happen from DNFs to disqualifications to his father drilling a hole through his wall and cutting the wire on the PlayStation by accident.
It happens.
So, Sandro's never had good luck. We've got Oleski rocking the Aston Martin. Robin Herderstagen is in the McLaren. Ivan Brito back in the Mercedes. We've got a newcomer today, Master Dave. And that is
David Rod, a Romanian driver. I think this is going to be his second or third race in SRL.
And I don't know who T-Beast is. I did not have any information on him.
That is Juan Rivas, first race, maiden race with SRL, in on Williams as Jamie Jägerstrom not racing today.
And we also have Jesper Lempinen in the AlphaTauri. He's actually got a pole position here from seasons past, and I believe a podium finish. Lewis Marshall being the other AlphaTauri. Christian Dorman in the other Williams. Nicolo Falzaresi in the Alfa Romeo. And Noel, that is...
Noel Rosso Abia, Spanish driver, first season. I think he made his debut at, was it Qatar, I want to say, earlier this season?
And George Pudding, good old George Pudding. George Wilkes in the Red Bull. Vincenzo Torri in the Mercedes. Noah Smith in the Haas. The Australian Luke Smith going to be filling in today in the Aston Martin. And then Senna Haywire is going to be in the other Haas. So currently 15 drivers for today's Grand Prix. It's not a bad driver lineup. Luke Smith will probably be doing the last to first finish, as he often does when it comes to his fill-ins. And as I've always said, if Luke Smith would take his online racing just a little bit more seriously, everybody else would be running for second.
Dion Stahl there coming in, and Tim Ventink, Dion Stahl on board for Ferrari for season 10 next season already. Two of the longest tenured teammates in SRL, Dion Stahl and Sandro Dulis.
And Tim Ventink going to be rocking the Alpine, or Alpine, for those French people.
Yeah, if we say Haas, I guess I can say Alpine, the very European grid we have.
And Tim Ventink, a former series champion himself. So it's wide open today without Jensen or Logan. So any takers? What's your guess on who's going to walk away with it today?
Noah Smith had such a good race last week that I think Noah can do some damage today. I think obviously Nicolo Falzaresi, kind of a home Grand Prix for him. Nicolo's always up there. And David Rod, the Romanian player, I think a really good few races we've seen from him so far. I think those are the three I would watch. But, you know, it's a pretty strong field. A lot of the mid-pack battles have been pretty fierce, and a lot of the mid-pack drivers now have room up front with Jensen and Logan out.
I'm going to keep my eyes on Oleski. He's always very fast, usually runs up front. And I would have to say Nicolo Falzaresi. If Falzaresi could stay out of trouble and not get caught up in the back, he's got a good shot at winning this race. And even possibly Tim Ventic. If he can find some of his old form, he might be one formidable opponent today. Looks like we're getting ready to start. We're going to kick off with an 18-minute short qualifying session, followed by a 50% race here at round 17.
Well, he's not in, Jensen Randall. He's currently up 116 points Drivers' Championship on, well, Logan Oren. So third place, currently Nicolo Falzaresi, 148 points back of the championship lead. Nothing to do but gain for him. But as the rounds start to come to a close here, it looks like Jensen's lead may be insurmountable at this point, but Nico is going to need a strong finish here to have a chance going into Singapore.
I think we have to look at it from a perspective of if Logan doesn't come back, the points gap is even greater because Logan at that point would be inconsequential. So really, Nicolo is going to be your closest championship rival, and it's just on the cusp of being out of contention completely. He's going to luck out today with Jensen not being in the race, but if Falzaresi doesn't score any points, it could be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, there's 182 points total to be gained from this point on. That is race win with fastest lap. The most you can get is 182. Jensen is 148 up on, the still active next contender. So a good race here from Jensen or a stumble from Nicolo, and again, it's pretty much a done deal for Jensen.
So we're going to get the track map up here. We're going to get some lap times up here. And it looks like that might be one of the AlphaTauris going out. Not AlphaTauri, the Alfa Romeo.
It is Nicolo Falzaresi in the Alfa Romeo, always one of the first out.
And Lewis Marshall has immediately retired from the session. Is that by design or internet issues?
Well, on board with Nico, again, home Grand Prix race for him. You see him coming around to the second chicane, Curva de Lesmo right after. So really the only two major braking points, I would say, Lance, the two chicanes that Nico's already found his way through. Otherwise, this is the fastest lap of the season we're going to see in terms of average speed.
Yeah, back-to-back fast tracks, Monza and Belgium. Belgium, obviously, last week we had a great race there. Old school track, much like Monza, very old school. You see he's coming up to Ascari now, another braking point. Not as heavy as the first two chicanes, but definitely one of those chicanes, the Ascari chicane is definitely one of those areas where you can lose a lot of time if you don't hit it just right. And we're going to hop on board with him as he gets ready to head through the Parabolica and out onto the front straightaway. We'll see what kind of time he can set. As long as he doesn't invalidate his lap time, he'll be the first one to set a time. Everybody else is coming out on their out laps now as we ride along with Nicolo Falzaresi.
And with so many safety cars the last couple of weeks, I'm guessing right here where Nico is, we're going to see some wing damage, front wing damage especially. Maybe look out on the first lap. We've seen Ferraris damage themselves in real life, so I expect quite a bit of pit stops in the first couple laps here as we get settled at Monza.
And Nicolo really trying to make the track as short as possible through that corner out of the chicane. Down into the second chicane, he's going to head into the Lesmos 1. And these Lesmos corners are very deceiving. For me, it's always been very hard to pinpoint exactly how fast or slow you can make it through those corners.
There's definitely a banking and maybe a little bit of a downhill entry to one or maybe both turns, so it's a little tricky. You have to do more than just visualize it. You really need to feel it.
Great run through Ascari and now down the back straightaway, heading towards the Parabolica. Caution flags fly in sector 1 and 2. Might have a car with a quick one on-off. And out of the Parabolica, Nicolo Falzaresi will be the first one to set a lap time. 1:19.144.
I think that in line for the first hot lap out there. The 118s, 119s, kind of where we're going to see the fastest lap during a race under supremely ideal conditions. So I think we'll see that time improve, but a good first lap, good banker for Nico.
And Nick Van Gelder has just joined the session. Late as always, I'm riding along right now with Tim Ventic. He's getting ready to head through Ascari. He's going to get a little bit of a slipstream there. And obviously, it looks like everybody's going to be setting these times on these soft tires. They've got perfect conditions out there. Dion Stahl sets a time of 1:26.946. Obviously, not his best effort. Must have run into some issues. Tim Ventic with a 1:19.8, 7/10 of a second off of Nicola Falzaresi's time.
I think Dion's, he was on inters. I think that was just purely checking the setup. So that is not a genuine time from Dion Stahl.
And Ivan Brito just went a 1:36.91. So his time's similar to Dion's, but he appears to be on soft tires. So, again, probably not by design.
Christian Dorman, the German driver in the Williams, coming through Lesmo now on the softs. And he's got someone benefiting from the slipstream behind him. That is the Ferrari. I believe it's Sandro Delis.
So only 4 drivers have set times so far. We've got 13 minutes left to play in the session. 2 of those times are non-competitive times, for whatever reason that may have been.
Bit more slipstream effect from Christian Dorman here. So these nice long straights, Dorman has had nice slipstream effect. Might buy him a 10th here or there.
Senna Highway set a time of a 1:21.776. Christian Dorman 1:23.97. Looks like we've got Robin Herderstagen heading through Ascari now. Caution flags flying a lot in Sector 3. George Wilkes has set a time 1:20.071. Noah Smith went 1:19.992. So Nicola Falzaresi, 7/10 of a second over Tim Ventic, the next closest driver. And if Falzaresi wants to have any shot of trying to stay in championship points contention, he's going to need that pole position, and he's going to want to get to turn 1. As you said earlier, the amount of safety cars we've had this year, especially the last few races, he's going to want to get out and clean and clear through that first chicane.
Yeah, I really downplayed Nico's time of 1:19.1, but as we've seen other drivers kind of cross start finish, that's looking a lot stronger than maybe I initially thought.
Currently got Vincenzo Torri coming down the back straightaway in the Mercedes AMG Petronas machine, getting ready to head into the Parabolica. Looks like he might have a halfway decent time. He's going to be right around that 120 mark as well. 088, and Luke Smith is retired from the session. That's just Luke being Luke. He'll start from the back, work his way to the front. And it looks like we've got Season 4 champion Nick Van Gelder out on track. He's getting ready to start a hot lap. He's got a slipstream from the car in front as he crosses the line. Start his hot lap now, heading down towards turn 1.
While Von Rivas coming around Parabolica, it's going to be his first qualifying lap in SRL. Spanish driver for Williams, going to cross around that 120 mark. Everyone consistent, 121 for Juan Rivas.
And I think Nick happened to be catching the Williams in front of him down in turn 1. I don't think that's necessarily impeding on purpose, but looks like he's got another driver in front of him trying to do a timed lap, and Nick is faster than he is.
Yeah, that's going to be Christian Dorman, who we saw the 123. But you're right, this is going to affect the downforce for Van Helder here.
So newcomer, David Rod went 1:19.599, second quickest.
Yeah, David Rod was really impressive in the last couple races I've seen him drive in. I think they're a real dark horse candidate for certainly a podium, maybe even a win here today with Jensen and Logan out.
And Oleski's going 1:19.682. So interesting top 3 right now. As we see Nick Van Gelder come out of the Parabolica. And a 125.55, only good enough for 12th right now, but interestingly enough, 7th through 12th is only covered by half a second, so it's not necessarily a bad time. The field's just that close right now.
Jesper Limpinen, the last driver to put a time up. He's coming around Parabolica now, entering at about 110. I think it's going to be tough to break 120, but it's going to be close. Oh, he does. Just by a tenth and a half.
119.847. And as I said earlier, Jesper Limpinen has a pole position here from seasons past, so he could be doing it again.
Yeah, what a time. This would certainly be Jesper's best start of the year after quali if this time can stick.
A lot of drivers in the pits, a lot of drivers on out laps. We've got 8:30 left to play in the session. Guys are going to swap out tires, get a little bit of a reset on some of their setups. We've got Senna Haywire. Looks like he's on a timed lap here as he came out of the first chicane. And Senna had a very short race last time out at Spa, involved in that lap 1 incident, unfortunately. Oh, and he's lost the back end. Oh, he almost brushed the wall going out of Lesmos 1 into Lesmos 2. So that's going to ruin that lap for Senna.
And while that was happening, Dion Stahl, who put that banker 126 in on inters to test the setup, he invalidated his most recent attempt. So it's going to come down to the wire for Dion Stahl here. Probably only one more shot on fresh tires for him to put up an actual quali time.
Meanwhile, Ivan Burrito did improve his time. He just went 1:23.75. He's now 12th. That knocks Nick Van Gelder down to 14th, followed by Christian Dorman. Meanwhile, we're going to pick up Tim Ventic, or I'm going to pick up Tim Ventic. As he's heading down into the first chicane, we'll ride along with him. Tiptoeing through the second chicane, he's coming up to Lesmos 1. And you're right about those Lesmos curves. I don't know that it's necessarily any type of banking, but it's almost like a dip at the apex of the corner. If you can hook it just right, you can get a little bit more turn in on the car.
Yeah, and you saw the Red Bull behind Tim Venting here did go wide on the second Lesmo turn, so it's tricky. You feel like you can take it so much faster than you actually can, I feel like.
Through the Parabolica, Tim going to try and improve his time. Currently sitting in the 7th position with a 1:19.8. Up to 4th. 1:19.614.
Noah Smith, while Tim Venting was on that run, a nice time himself, 1:19.45, puts himself ahead of David Rodman. Or David Rodman. That's the American in me.
Dennis Rodman.
David Rod. I would hate to give David Rod some sort of nickname like the Worm, just because I accidentally called him Rodman one time. Looks like Koivuniemi here trying to improve as he finishes Sector 1, a 10th ahead of his own previous best. That would put him in Q4, possibly Q3 here. As Christian Dorman disrupts that prediction with a 1:19.44, putting him in P2.
So great qualifying effort there by Christian Dorman. Kind of upsetting the apple cart just a little bit. And now you're starting to see these times drop. A lot of guys starting to crack into that 1:19.
Yeah, the track evolution is real on Monza. And meanwhile, again, Koivuniemi up a 10th and a half as he comes into Parabolica. That would catapult him up into P4.
Oh, and George Wilkes just went 1:19.3. So the times are dropping. And Nicolo Falzaresi is still sitting in the pits. He set the provisional pole time at a 1:19.1, and that was at the beginning of the session. And now Alesky's gone 1:19.229.
What is Sector 3 for Alexi?
All right, so Falzaresi is on his out lap, coming out of the first chicane. There's 4 minutes left to play in this session.
Yeah, there will definitely be a lot of drivers completing a qualifying lap after Nico here. You figure about a minute and a half to warm up, another 1:19 for the actual lap. That leaves over half a minute for the drivers to get ready. But what a Sector 3 for Koivuniemi. He gained 3/10 just in Sector 3 on that lap.
I'm going to pick up T-Beast. I can't remember his name.
Juan Rivas.
Juan Rivas. Doesn't matter. He's heading into the pits. And then we have Noel. Looks like he's on a timed lap heading into the first chicane. And Juan Rivas is retired from the session. I guess he figures he's not going to be able to improve his time. A 1:19.885 is what his time is going to be locked in at. Good enough for 10th right now. But as you said, with the track evolution, I got a feeling he's going to drop down the ranking here just a little bit.
Falzaresi starts his last qualifying attempt here coming into the chicane. And the other drivers start to make their way out. Ventink, Dulis, Torre, Pervire, all on outlaps. Falzaresi losing a bit of time in Sector 1 there, down about a 10th.
So his teammate Noel is getting ready to come out of the Parabolica and set his time, see if he can improve from the 1:21.65. That's got him locked into 12th position right now. Here comes Noel. He's going to come across the line. Wow, what an improvement. Almost half a second. 1:19.715 jumps him up to 8th. And we're
Nico,
pick up.
on the other hand, has gained 2/10, so he's now up a 10th on his personal best after being down a 10th in Sector 1. And Sector 3 seems to be where everyone's gaining on their own personal best so far. So I think Falzaresi here is going to be the first driver into the 1:18 range.
Here he comes out of the Parabolica. Got a caution flag flying in Sector 1. It's probably down in the chicane. 1:18.941 for Nicolo Falzaresi. Brian called it first driver into the 1:18s. And that is your provisional pole time as it stands. We'll pick up Tim Ventic. He just started a hot lap coming down in the first chicane.
And it is crowded coming out of Ascari mini-map. It is going to be a very busy last minute here qualifying at Monza.
A little bit of wheel spin for Tim Ventic as he came out of the second chicane, heads into Lesmos 1, kind of tiptoeing his way through the first Lesmos. A little smoother through the second one, down the back straightaway. In through Ascari. That is a good run through Ascari and down the back straightaway heading towards the Parabolica. Tim Ventic might have something for some of these guys. Currently sitting in the 8th position. Sandro's going 1:19.232, good enough for 3rd. Great qualifying effort for him in the Ferrari. Here comes Tim Ventic. Oh, barely improves his time. A 1:19.577, only good enough for 7.
And there was, it looks like a Haas driver. Who is that in Parabolica? They went off on Parabolica, and they're not going to be able to get the qualifying, but I couldn't see which driver that was.
It was probably Senna Haywire.
It must have been Senna, yeah. I was looking at the mini-map. He was going to be the last one to get a qualifying lap underway, and then around Parabolica, his little dot just completely stopped. So Senna is done.
We've got David Rod is now locked in at a 1:19.215. Your provisional pole time is from Nicolo Falzaresi, the only driver so far to crack into the 1:18s with a 1:18.941. I'm currently watching Noah Smith head down the back straightaway towards the Parabolica. He's going to get a little bit of a slipstream off of the McLaren in front of him.
Yeah,
Noah Smith, 1:19.1, good enough for second.
He was so hungry for that slipstream that he kind of took a wider path to the start-finish instead of that kind of hugging the wall that we usually see. I wonder if the slipstream offset not going for the shortest distance, but
And
you can't argue with the
Oleski
results.
just went 1:19.989. So now Oleski is second. Tim Ventic, he is not on a flyer. So Tim's actually going to be the last driver out on track. Everybody else's times are locked in. Sandro dived into the pits. So Nicolo Falzaresi, pole sitter with a 1:18.941. Oleski right behind him with a 1:18.989 is your front row.
Well, I would say our favorites, we were kind of spot on. It was Falzaresi, Koivuniemi, Noah Smith, David Rod, Tim Venting, an improvement there into P8. So, again, it's a wide open field. The podium last season, Koivuniemi, Oren, Balai, only one of those drivers racing today. So Koivuniemi was the winner of season 8, and another great showing so far for the Finnish driver in the Aston Martin.
So that wraps up our 18-minute short qualifying session. We are going to follow that up with a 50% race here at Monza.
Be curious to see the tire strategy. We see a wide range each race, and some drivers you see they have a preference. You know, Jenson Randall always seems to go with a harder compound to start. He wants to have a long stint. The drivers who are pacey and want to make the moves early, Logan Oren comes to mind, tends to go soft.
Well, I can tell you from experience that Luke Smith will start on probably a set of hards and run a very long first stint to get the track position. And if he stays out of trouble, he'll run the mediums or the softs to the end on a short stint to try and maintain that track position. So Luke Smith, always kind of a weird cat to watch. Always loves that back to front play. I think Lewis Marshall might be doing the same. He didn't set a time.
I think that's the general, general convention, right? Is if you start up front, you want to go a little bit softer. If you start in the back, you want to go something a little harder. I do think some of the drivers have been playing maybe a little bit of a gamble, going softer early, just assuming there's going to be a safety car. And I will say, based on recent history in SRL and what Monza is known for, we could see a safety car early. So I do think there could be a benefit to getting as much position as you can early on.
So we'll do the formation lap. We will run down the running order. Nicolo Falzaresi with another pole position, followed by Season 8 winner Oleski. And Noah Smith in the Haas. And David Rod, as you said, been impressive in his first couple outings with SRL. Starting in the 4th position today. Could be a contender. Sandro Dulius, who never does well here, is going to be looking to try and just put some points on the board and have a good race here at Monza for a change. George Wilkes starting 6th in the Red Bull. Christian Dorma behind him in the Williams. And Tim Ventic, who I thought would have been a little bit quicker throughout qualifying, only could muster an 8th position. Noel be starting in 9th. Former pole sitter here, Jesper Lempinen, starting in 10th.
Yeah, I think Jesper starting in 10th just shows you how much track evolution came into play at the end of qualifying, because Jesper, with still only a few minutes left, put in a blistering lap to put him in P4. And then, of course, everyone was able to improve after that. So it was really a qualifying session where if you were the last one on track, you had the most to gain.
Well, I think it also shows you just how close the field actually is when drivers like Jensen and Logan are not necessarily in the race. Which says a lot about Logan and Jensen and how fast they actually are. Vincenzo Toro will be starting in the 11th position. T-Beast, Juan Rivas starting in 12th. Nick Van Gelder, the Season 4 champion, starting all the way back in 13th. Ivan Brito, 14th. Dion Stahl for the Tifosi fans starting in 15th. And Senna Haywire is 16th. And rounding out your 19 drivers, Robin Herderstragen, Lewis Marshall, and the prime Stingray himself, Luke Smith.
And just looks like a McLaren and an AlphaTauri there. Same, staying in position, Robin Hertzstadhagen, Lewis Marshall. A little bit of quirkiness, as always, with the online lobbies of F123.
No, there's never any online issues. So we'll wait for the grid to get reset. Somehow Oleski, there we go. We'll wait for the 5 red lights. And a drive-through penalty for
We've got some
Noel.
itchy fingers.
Lights out. Time to run what you brung, and it looks like Noel jumped the start. Not a great start. I think there might be some lobby issues potentially. And we've got a caution flag flying. Oh, and there's major contact in the first chicane. Seno Haywire retired from the session. 5-second time penalty for Sandro Julius for causing a collision. Lewis Marshall, 5-second time penalty. And I think we've got a glitched lobby is what might be going on here.
It certainly would appear that way. This is, we've had some messy starts, but I can't imagine we'd have one quite this messy.
And now Sandro with another 5-second time penalty, ignoring the yellow flags. Hard to say what happened there. I feel like this is definitely definitely some glitchiness here. We'll see what happens and how this plays out and how race control wants to handle it.
We are technically out of the VSC, and it's Noah Smith and Nicolo in P1 and P2 with quite a gap to Alexei Koivuniemi in P3.
So it looks like Vincenzo Torri, his car is DNF. He's left the session. He's rejoined the session. Yeah, I'm still kind of at a loss as to what exactly is going on. And it looks like we've got Noah Smith is heading into the pits. So that is going to put Nicolo Falzaresi in the lead by a substantial amount. Oleski is 8 seconds behind, and in hot pursuit of him is Sandro Julius and David Rod.
I'm impressed, Nico, despite kind of getting really taking full contact to the side pod in the first chicane. Doesn't seem to have any noticeable damage. Of course, side pod damage isn't really visual in this game, but I mean, the gap speaks for itself.
Yeah, my timing and scoring is a little jacked up from whatever happened. But you can still see here Nicolo Falzaresi well out in front. About 8 seconds ahead of Oleski. David Rod in hot pursuit of him, followed by Sandro Julius. Jesper Lempinen has worked his way up into 5th from that crazy start. George Wilkes is in 6th. Juan Rivas 7th. Luke Smith worked his way from last all the way up to 8th. And he brought Lewis Marshall with him in 9th position. And Dion Stahl rounding out your top 10 points-paying positions in what's been a fairly weird and chaotic start. And that's 2 weeks in a row Senna Haywire has been taken out in the first lap of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You know, cold tires, and again, Monza's reputation precedes it, especially with online racing. But you check the positions changed. It is significant. You mentioned drivers starting behind. Luke Smith up 11 positions. Lewis Marshall up 9 positions. So there's some patience going into that first chicane's really paid off.
And Jesper Lempinen, unfortunately, has dived into the pit, so he's going to fall down through the order. Looks like my timing and scoring is finally getting itself straightened out a little bit. So Oleski 8 seconds behind of Nicolo Falzaresi in the second position, but David Rod is right behind him, bringing Sandro Julius with him. So we've got a 3-car battle. Sandro loses the back end through Ascari, or through the second chicane, saves it, but he lost a chunk of time, and now George Wilkes is getting ready to jump on him.
Yeah, we do have DRS enabled again for this lap, so Sandro might have lost the DRS. He passed the detection point right in between the two Lesmo curves.
And David Rod is definitely going to be in striking distance. Oh, and Sandro's retired from the session. What has happened to
Oh
Sandro?
boy.
I'm going to try and pick up Noah Smith, see if I can see maybe where that happened. Oh, and Lewis Marshall's retired from the session.
Meanwhile, David Rod into Parabolica took a look. I think you always have to on Alexei Koivuniemi, but still just behind.
And I think we're getting a reset is what's happening here. Looks like Dion's left, Sandro's left, Lewis, Oleski's now left. So it looks like we're going to be getting ourselves a new lobby. Obviously, we don't have the race chatter in the race control here in our party. So anything from race control on the live stream chat?
It looks like Alexei's looking. Yes, there's a vote among the drivers, and it appears there will be a restart. And why wouldn't there be when half the grid is no longer here?
So I'm going to assume this is all related to the lap 1 incident. The game did see a little glitched out. Even before they even got to the first chicane, we saw Christian Dorman had a 5-second time penalty for jumping the start. And that caused a little bit of a chain reaction. Senna Haywire, DNF. Vincenzo Torri, DNF. But as you said earlier with Nicolo Falzaresi, he basically got T-boned and pushed through the first chicane and then managed to get an 8-second lead from that. So
I think it was just that there was a VSC briefly, and drivers were slowing down for the Delta. And I think with all the chaos, it was just that Nico realized the VSC had ended and went full throttle again before everybody else really had a chance.
So I guess we will try to maintain as much as we can over the course of the next few minutes, given everything that's going on.
But George Wilkes, meanwhile, enjoying quite a bit of a leisurely stroll here as your race leader for now.
Nope. Drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. So full safety car. We're going to go ahead and reset this grid. We're going to wait for a new invite to the race. And it doesn't happen often here at SRL, but unfortunately, you would think after years and years and years of making said video game that they would be able to perfect the lobbies just a little bit better than what we get sometimes with some of these online races.
Well, with Christian Dorman being disqualified for too many penalties, I guess at the moment your race winner, the only man who's going to leave with points, Jesper Limpinen. But we'll work on getting a new lobby here, and we'll get some actual racing underway. But for now, Jesper Limpinen, enjoy the race win here at the Italian GP, pending any decisions from the race stewards. So we will have a race restart. The Jesper fans in chat urging him on.
Yeah, I do see some chat going into the Discord. This going back quite a few minutes, obviously, but
Hey, Jesper. So we'll have a lobby restart. One of the first times we've seen an AlphaTauri on the podium. But it'll be a short-lived celebration for Jesper. We will get this underway again.
Looks like Oleski was the first one to suggest a lobby restart. Sandro Dulius, just a few minutes ago, put up a vote for the drivers. Noah Smith had a disconnect. Vincenzo Torri was hoping for a restart. Falzaresi.
A lot of the drivers are in a party chat during the race as well, so I'm sure discussed there before anything put into text, but I think it was obvious on our end that there was something amiss with the lobby. Um, as soon as you saw the two false starts, basically it was all downhill from there.
And there's a new invite to a new lobby. So we won't be going through the qualifying again. We'll do custom grid, and apparently this session no longer exists, so I can't get into that one.
Boy. Well, appreciate viewers staying with us. We knew it'd be chaos. It is Monza after all, but a different type of chaos than we're used to.
And I can't get into the lobby that Sandra sent the invite for. Apparently that one no longer exists, so stick with
Well,
us.
while we're
We'll
on
get it
stream,
straightened out.
even Brito, there's the invite from our favorite Portuguese driver.
And I am trying to join.
Okay.
All right,
So
looks
we'll
like we are back in.
Yeah, and obviously no qualifying. These drivers have already qualified. So we'll do it again. We'll call it a sprint race victory for Jesper Limpinen. No points awarded for that, unfortunately for Jesper.
Yeah, that was just a glorified practice session.
Yes, that was a true practice session here, really testing the setups and the reflexes of the rest of the grid.
So I do have Nick Van Gelder on my live chat, and he says, let's hope for less chaos on the restart. So we'll see how that goes.
We do have drivers dropping from this lobby. It's making me wonder. Sandro's game crashed is what Koivuniemi is saying. We've got all sorts of issues here.
And you know, with Sandro's history with this track, that only seems fitting that his game would crash here at Monza.
Yeah, I'm not sure what sort of Italian demons that Sandro has displeased in his past, but there must be something.
So Sandro's curse at Monza goes all the way back to Season 2 while he crashed out while fighting for the lead. Season 3, he crashed in the final corner on the final lap, still managed to get beat P3, so that was his only podium here. He should have won on Season 4, but got taken out by a glitch. He was flipped upside down on lap 1 by Jensen Randall in Season 5. Season 6, he states that he crashed out due to a severe lack of talent. And last year, Season 8, he was disconnected after his dad decided to drill into a wire which cut the power to the house. So Sandro certainly has some really bad luck when it comes to Monza. And Season 9 is just going to be even more fitting if his game has crashed out on him completely.
Yeah, some things just aren't meant to be.
Which is really a shame when you look at Sandro and Dion Stahl, the Tifosi, the longest set of teammates throughout the course of the SRL history, always have been in the Ferraris. Neither one of them have ever had very good luck at Monza. And I think even the few seasons that we've done Imola, nothing has been super impressive there. So the Ferraris at their home tracks have not been able to produce the results.
Yeah, I mean, the one round we weren't able to run this season was Imola, so there's...
And there you go.
It'll be interesting to see what happens at Imola and Monza in Season 10, but what we do know is, as mentioned earlier, Dion Stahl will be back with the Scuderia for Season 10, so the teammates will continue working together here.
Yeah, they are usually the ones that usually sign up first, and really no change ever with those guys. which is kind of nice. There is a core group of drivers that have been a part of SRL for a many number of seasons at this point. Obviously, Sandra, since he's the one that started the league. Dion was there from the beginning. Nick Van Gelder has been here since, he was here before season 4, but season 4 is when he made his comeback, and he's been with it for, since then. Jesper's been here for a number of seasons. Jensen, obviously. So a nice core group of drivers that have stuck with SRL over the years. And unfortunately, today's race is kind of up in arms right now about what's going on.
And we'll keep getting updates. I'm in the Discord. We're looking at the chat. Even Brito since season 4. It really is a lot of continuity with the drivers, which makes it easy on the commentary side for sure. See drivers you're used to seeing, see the growth season to season.
I mean, you take a look, Nick Van Gelder's in his 8th season. Looks like I'm getting another invite. Hey, you take a look, Nick Van Gelder's in his 8th season. Obviously, Sam Brandt, not consecutively, but will be basically in his 7th season after last week's comeback. Took a 2-year sabbatical. It's not the first time Sam has stepped away from online racing. Obviously, Sandro and Dion. Ivan Brito, 5 years in. Robin Herdestegen, 5 years in. Tim Ventix in his 5th season. Even guys like Jesper and Lewis Marshall, Jensen Randall, they're all 4 and 5 seasons in. It's been pretty impressive to see so many drivers want to stay, with a said league. In online gaming, seems to be a lot of league jumping unless you're playing with a group of friends per se. But some of the more major leagues, you see a lot of guys come and go almost on a seasonal basis.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the league that Sandro has really cultivated and curated over the last 9 seasons to have so many returning drivers, high-level drivers too. It's a league that takes itself very seriously, and the racing reflects that.
Well, I think anybody, if they look back through the course of the seasons that they've had, I mean, it's always been. There's not a lot of drama on or off track. The little bit of drama that does happen is usually taken care of relatively quickly, and that drama doesn't generally make its way back to the track the following races.
Right.
And I think that does, as you said, speak volumes about how Sandro treats the league. He wants it to be fun, but he also wants it to be as serious and as close to real life as possible, which is part of the issue, I think, and we talked about this last week, I think, why we had the issue that we've had with Logan, where, we talked with Nick, where Sandro kind of has this real life Formula One mentality where some of the drivers might have, well, it's just a game mentality, and some of the stuff that happens on track can't necessarily fly.
And I think with Logan too, Logan and I have quite a bit in common. I play and commentate for high-level fighting games, and Logan plays on that end. So I kind of get Logan's feeling. I don't necessarily endorse it, but I understand it. In a game that in a situation, a competition that's one-on-one, there's only one person to blame. But when you're driving with 17, 18, 19 other people, sometimes you will be punished for something that you had no fault in, no hand in, and that can be very difficult to deal with. And Logan always drives hard. I mentioned last week, especially with Freyob, seeing a McLaren and a Haas battle together. That's something I've seen all season with those two. So I think it can get to a point where you feel like you're hard done. And Logan was always able to fight for a podium. So my hope is Logan comes back. I've always loved seeing Logan race, but I think part of this being something closely simulating competitive racing, F1 racing, there are some high tension moments too, and I can respect that. Along with that comes some reactions that maybe you need a little bit of time to handle internally.
Well, I think it's also been hard for Logan because I've been dealing with him for a number of seasons and with multiple leagues. I've seen him racing. This is a third different league I've watched him race in and commentate on, and he's always kind of been the odd man out because he's always been just the lone American. And I know when he was with IRL a few seasons back, that was really a point of contention with him and the other drivers. They really, at a certain point, it was all of Europe was against the one American. And I feel like some of that I don't feel that that's happened with SRL, but I feel like maybe he feels like because he is the only American that he still has that everybody's against me type mentality. And that's just not the case. I think we had a lot of discussion about Logan's penalty with Falzaresi in that instance, and I was one of the ones that was advocating more of the video game type mentality. One, Niccolo shouldn't have been there, and yeah, Logan put him in the wall, but Logan gave him more than enough time to back off, and Niccolo still didn't want to back off. So I kind of got where he was coming from, but on Sandro's behalf, Sandro doesn't necessarily tolerate that type of contact in any way, shape, or form. And it was not the first time that we've banned a driver for on-track contact like that. And at the end of the day, we were outvoted 3-2, and it was what it was, is what it is. But I would like to see Logan come back because it's definitely not a Europe versus Logan type thing. He just has
No, definitely not.
He has some really bad luck with safety cars too, for some reason. I don't know what it is with him. He's just the safety car never lands to benefit him in any way, shape, or form. But it looks like we finally got the everything straight here with the grid, the drivers. Obviously, there's going to be no qualifying this time. Hopefully, I believe they would do a custom grid to reset everybody into their original starting positions. And hopefully, looks like Sandro is going to be the last guy to connect, so he must still be having some issues. Watching his little thing in the corner try and go green, and it's just not going to be his day.
Yeah, you mentioned safety cars and how they benefit or don't Logan and all the safety cars last week. It feels like we've been kind of in our own little a second type of virtual safety car here for the last 15 minutes or so. But we at least have a grid. We're at least looking at the garages here at Monza again.
I'm just going to say it now. I wouldn't be surprised if Sandro ends up joining us in the booth at some point during this race.
Well, if it comes to that, getting the commissioner in here, that's what we'll do. I know for Sandro, he would, I think, in a heartbeat, sit out of a race if it meant everybody could race and SRL could continue as normal. But hopefully, we'll be able to continue here with our full grid.
So it looks like we are going to get our formation lap. And yeah, you do bring up a really good point. That's the one thing I do got to give Sandro a lot of credit on is that, a lot of these other online leagues, if they're run by one person and that one person also happens to race, there seems to be a lot of benefit for that guy. If you're the league president and you race, you always try to kind of benefit yourself if you can, or your penalties might not necessarily, you might get a little bit more leeway than some of the other drivers. And that's just not how it is with Sandro. Sandro is all about the league as a whole. As you said, if it benefits the league, then he will, do what it takes to benefit the league. I've got Fun Oreo on the live chat. That is good old Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson used to be an online racer as well. Tried his hand at creating his own online league, and turns out it's a lot harder to do by yourself than people give credit for.
I think that's true for most competitive communities, especially when it is primarily online or, like local scenes. And again, to bring up fighting games, it's a lot of times it's just about consistency. It's about being able to put something on every week, even if maybe you only have 10 drivers this week. I think as you become known for having an event at a specific time consistently, people will come. And I think that's what Sandro's done with SRL, you know, through thick and thin times. He's really gathered a very talented group of drivers here who hopefully can get through 27 laps unimpeded from here on out.
Well, Anthony, if you ever want to join SRL, I can certainly get you in. They're always looking for more drivers. So, Anthony Johnston, he's a good dude too. He really is. He's a good guy. Tried his best to try and get something going after there was a incident with one of the leagues that he did participate in that kind of folded and went under. He tried to keep it going to the best of his abilities, but it's really hard to do. And like you said, if you just can't get people to join in on a consistent basis, then it's not going to happen. So we're going to get ready to go here. 50% race, custom grid. We tried starting this race once before. And we'll wait for the game to reset, hopefully correctly this time. This is looking a little better. So we'll wait for the 5 red lights, and that's a long pause between lights. There it is. Lights out. Time to run what you brung. They're away in a puff of smoke. Good start by Falzaresi, but here comes Oleski to the inside as they head down towards the first chicane.
A second chance at the first chicane, still contact.
And now we're 3 wide as they come out of there. That's not going to be good. Noah Smith all the way on the outside. Oleski gets out in front of Falzaresi. Noah Smith trying to take the long way around. Oleski's going to try and cut the line.
It's looking dangerous coming into the second chicane.
And Oleski manages to hold off the 2 charging drivers, and Falzaresi has fallen from first to third. Looks like we've got a caution flag flying in Sector 2. Looks like that might be Juan Rivas has gone around.
Well, we're at least through Lesmo without a safety car VSC any noticeable damage, although there's been plenty of contact, wheel to wheel for both Noah Smith and Nicolo Falzaresi there, out of the second chicane. So it is better, but you know, if we were in school, I might call this a B-. There's room for improvement.
The top 6 drivers starting to pull away from the pack collectively. So Oleski is going to lead the first lap of this race in the Aston Martin. He's on the hard tires. Nicolo Falzaresi is going to be right behind him. And then right behind that is, that's Noah Smith and then Nicolo Falzaresi. And Falzaresi is going to jump out, try and get a pass without the DRS down the inside of Noah Smith. Oh, and they're side by side. Oh. Noah Smith holds them off. Oh, and there's contact. Falzaresi gets hit by David.
I think Nico also a little wheel spin on the exit there, so you see the gap increasing between him and Noah Smith.
And now Sandro Julius is under threat from Noel. Nothing to come of it through the second chicane. Tim Ventic running in the 5th position. And Falzaresi looks like he lost a little bit of gap there to Noah Smith. A little bit of separation now. Looks like Robin Herterstagen's making a move on Dion Stahl in the back for the 15th position. And it looks like we're finally starting to get a little bit of separation.
What a start for Alexei Koivuniemi. Great jump off the line, even on the hard compound. Able to get the overtake done early, as scary as it was going 3 wide. But he'll start the 3rd lap with the race lead. 2nd in a row for him.
And Falzaresi is going to try one more time to get to the inside of Noah Smith as they come down the front straightaway. DRS is finally going to be enabled this lap. A little bit deeper on the brakes goes Falzaresi, but Noah Smith hanging tough, and they're still side by side as they come out of there.
Yeah, respectful driving from both. Room left for Noah. Great job there by Nico to get the overtake done.
And now Falzaresi up in the 2nd, but here it's 3 wide behind him.
Oh, David Rod really hopping that curb there around the 2nd chicane.
Currently running in the 4th position. He's got Tim Ventic all over the back of him.
Nice and careful for David Rod through Lesmo there. We saw it in qualifying, drivers going wide. He might have gone in with a little bit less speed than he can carry, but this is a 27-lap race. You can lose it here, but you can't win it here.
And Noel looks like he's trying to think about making a move on Sandro. He's getting really close as they head down towards Ascari, but Lost a little bit of time going into Ascari. Looks like he's getting it back down this back straightaway towards the Parabolica.
Koivuniemi has enough of a lead to keep Nicolo Falzarzi out of DRS. DRS is enabled.
Uh-oh. That's Noah Smith. Looks like there might have been contact at the Parabolica. So Noah Smith drops out of the battle for the second, all the way down to 14th, and that moves David Rod into the second position. I'm sorry, into the third position.
Well, nice and calculated race from David Rod, I think, so far. Staying out of trouble. Taking the opportunities he can get, looking inside here on Nico. Going to get the overtake done coming into the second chicane. Nicely done for the McLaren driver.
Nico trying to come back. That is very tight heading through Lesmos 2. And Falzaresi's got to be real careful. He's going to get that aero wash coming off of the back end of the McLaren as they head down towards Ascari.
And I've mentioned it each and every lap, but what a start for Koivuniemi. The gap on the hard compound, 1.5 over David Rod. Koivuniemi just out there looking like Jenson Randall in the Aston Martin livery.
Falzaresi going to try, just peeks as he heads into the Parabolica. Not going to make a move.
David Rod a little bit wide into the
Parabolica.
Parabolica.
He's very wide coming out of there, and he's going to lose that time. And Falzaresi's going to have the DRS. Here comes Tim Ventic down the inside. What a move by Ventic. Gets the 2-for-1 deal, heading down towards the first chicane. Unbelievable. Oh, and Falzaresi, he thought about stuffing it in there to protect that position, but Tim Ventic up into second spot. What a move.
Wow. Nice and clean there. Ventic, Falzaresi, Rod, Razo Avia, Dulis, all within just a couple tenths of each other, keeping it clean through the first chicane.
Meanwhile, Lesky's still out in front to 1.5 second lead. But the battle for second is a 5-car battle for one spot.
Yeah, and only Nico among that battle on the hard compound, everybody else on mediums. So, it's an interesting bit of strategy here for Nico. He's on the same strategy you would think as Koivuniemi, but this battle's only helping Koivuniemi and hurting him.
Caution flag, sector 2. That's Ivan Burrito is gone off course. This looks like this is at one of the, this is Lesmos 1, heading into Lesmos 2, so Ivan Brito might have had a little bit of help there.
DRS light of Tim Ventic flashing. He'll be very vulnerable here. DRS detection and Parabolica. We'll see if anyone can get the move done on Ventic in the Alpine.
And Ventic unable to make any type of gap. Looks like we're going to have another 3-wide battle heading... 4 wide! Oh my gosh!
4 wide into the chicane at Monza. These are suicidal drivers.
That was Noel picking up 3 spots up into second place. And it looks like Sandro might have gotten around Tim Ventic for the 5th position.
What a rough situation for Ventic. Out of ERS, at a DRS detection point coming on Parabolica, and has 4 cars overtake him.
Oh, and a little bit of contact there between Rod and now Noel. Rod's going to try and get to the inside, heading down in the first Lesmos. Oh, that is tight. Meanwhile, this is all being the benefit for Oleski as he's now pulled out to a 3.2 second gap over this battle for second that just will not stop.
Yeah, Koivuniemi, who I think is not that far removed from saying he was thinking of retiring from SRL, looking like Fernando Alonso in the Aston now, not just Jenson Randall.
And it looks like Noel's going to gap himself just a little bit from David Rod, about half a second, but all those drivers are still going to be within DRS. And we've seen how that's going the last couple of laps, so we'll see what happens here. A little bit of separation now. Second, third, and fourth. Been able to gap Sandro Dulius in 5th. David Rod to the inside of Noel. Here comes Falzaresi as well. Falzaresi gets back in line. David Rod's going to take the second position away.
That DRS effect out of Parabolica is so huge.
And a big twitch for Falzaresi coming out of the first chicane. That's allowed Sandro just to close the gap a little bit. But Falzaresi coming back on his teammate. And it looks like Noel might be letting him go by.
Interesting strategy. I mean, unless the medium's already dropping off. Whoa, someone goes way wide into the second chicane.
Oh, that's
That
Sandro
looked like the
Dulius.
Ferrari of Sandro Dulis. Yes.
He's going to lose a couple of positions, falls back into 7th. Jesper Lempinen up to 6th. Uh-oh, Falzarezzi. What's happened to Falzarezzi?
Nico.
Oh, he's crashed at Lesbos 1. He's binned it into the wall.
Oh, Nico. And a safety car, so... Koivuniemi, more than anyone, stays out during a safety car. I'm curious what he'll do here. That gap he had worked on is now going to be gone.
Oh, this is exactly what we talked about in the pre-race, too. If Falzarezzi could stay out of trouble and out of the aggressive state of mind, he would have benefited greatly in the point standings, but this is not what he needed. This is a huge blow.
Wow, and yeah, Nico, this was definitely, it felt like his race, even with Alexi. Alexi is going to go into the pits. David Rod going to follow, and you wonder if everyone's going to follow them now that the front runners have gone into the pit lane.
That is gut-wrenching. Luke Smith doing what Luke Smith does, will not pit. I knew that was coming.
The other hard compound of Lewis Marshall staying out there as well.
5-second speeding penalty for Senna Haywer.
That is new to SRL this season. It is a fully manual pit.
That is the way it should have been. I'm surprised that they didn't do that in years past.
Well, we trade one Aston race leader for another. And in second, the AlphaTauri of Lewis Marshall. Alexi does come out P3 and have a tire advantage, so a good pit stop for Alexi.
So Alexi will be the first car in sequence that pitted. Lewis Marshall and Luke Smith. Luke's going to run his standard hard compound stint. Doesn't matter when that safety car comes out. I don't know if he's got OCD when it comes to running these hards, but this is what Luke Smith does.
I'm curious to see David Rod come out on the same compound, so no matter what, he'll need another pit stop. But he started on medium, came out on the medium. Everyone else seems to have switched.
Trying to do the Michael Schumacher 4-stop?
Well, Rod has the pace. He's got the racecraft. He's had great results in the races we've seen, but even though he's in the same compound as Koivuniemi now, they are certainly not on the same strategy.
So that is, I still can't believe that that happened to Nicolo. We had such a good race going. It was definitely Falzarezzi's race to lose, and really shot himself in the foot this time.
Yeah, this really only benefits Jenson Randall. You know, Nico was the driver with the most to gain, being P3 in the Drivers' Championship, but still very far behind. Now, Jenson's going to be up 148 on Nico with only 156 points available after this race. So 8, the magic number for Jenson Randall for essentially locking that Drivers' Championship.
Which very well may happen next week at Singapore, which Singapore is always a very brutal race in real life and online. Like, that's just the way. It's very long. The track is very demanding. Weather's usually a factor in both instances. So, but man, what a tough break for Nicolo Falzarezzi. He's one of those drivers that he's very hit and miss. He has these flashes of brilliance and unbelievable racecraft, and then he has times where he does something like this, and you just can't fathom what happened and how. So we should...
Everything is queued up. Yeah, I'm guessing we're about to say the same thing, and that safety car is coming in this lap.
Yeah, we should get the notification that the safety car will be coming in. And there it is, race control. Safety car in this lap. Oleski, I'm sorry, not Oleski, that's Luke Smith, the other Aston Martin. Luke Smith will be the control car. We'll see when Luke decides to go, and we'll see if Lewis Marshall can hang with him.
Keeping the tires in the temperature range there. You see Luke Smith, a little bit of a weave.
If I know Luke, he'll go right at the parabolica And looks like he is off to the races. And a great restart by Oleski. Here comes Oleski to the inside of Lewis Marshall.
Wow, Lewis Marshall just really threw it over, elbows out for him.
And look at the run Oleski's got heading down into turn one.
Oh my gosh. The grip advantage.
Oh, and Lewis Marshall trying to get to the inside of Luke Smith. Oh my goodness. Oh, and there's contact.
And the gap for Koivuniemi, I mean, talk about the king of race starts, whether it's a standing start or rolling start. Oh! The other Alfa Romeo.
I can't even pick it up.
Hard into the wall. That was Noah Rosso Abia. I think that's Biasono. He just suddenly shot straight into the wall. We're still driving. I think, of course, in real race conditions, that would be another safety car, but Koivuniemi 3 seconds on his teammate, Luke Smith.
So Luke Smith running in second. He's got Lewis Marshall all over the back of him. Tim Ventic followed by Jesper Lempinen up to fifth. And Sandro Dulius hasn't made a whole lot of headway. He's made up for that issue that he had at the second chicane. He's back up into sixth now. And Tim Ventic has gotten around Lewis Marshall coming out of Ascari. Looks like Lewis Marshall's going to try and get it back heading into the Parabolica. Not close enough.
Well, no DRS on the safety car restart yet. So it'll all be slipstream effect and ERS coming into the first chicane. I'm not sure if Koivuniemi's car is just from a different era, because it is looking not close to competitive out there against Koivuniemi.
And it looks like Christian Dorman's falling through the grid a little bit, lost a few positions. Battle rages on for sixth position. Sandro Dulius getting a little bit of bump and grind there from Jesper Lempinen. And now Nick Van Gelder coming with him. Caution flag flies in sector one. Somebody blew the first chicane. Looks like that was Senna Haywire as he took out some of the styrofoam signs there. And look at this battle here. Sixth place. We've got 5-6 cars. Oh, somebody got pushed wide.
Yeah, it is getting chaotic there in the mid-pack.
And that is Luke Smith, who got pushed wide at the second chicane. Nick Van Gelder up into fourth. That's the best run he's had in a long time.
That happened very suddenly, too. Luke Smith, Jesper Lempinen down into fifth and sixth. David Rod into ninth. So kind of a dream restart for Koivuniemi and kind of a nightmare for some of the other drivers.
Working lap 11 of 27, watching Sandro Dulius head through Ascari. He's had a bit of a rough day, but still holding steady here in mid-pack. And he's got George Wilkes coming up from behind him. Meanwhile, Nick Van Gelder is getting closer and closer to Lewis Marshall. It's been a long time since I've seen Nick fight for a podium, and now the DRS is going to be enabled, so things are going to get even crazier. Here on the front straightaway, Nick Van Gelder going to have that slot open this time behind Nope, but he's got a good slipstream coming down, and he backs off.
To back off, yeah. Interesting decision. Lewis Marshall at a tire disadvantage. We don't know how much Nick Van Gelder knows about tire strategies, but definitely backed off. Didn't want to risk it.
Nick doesn't know anything about tire strategy. Nick is very hard on his tires. Braking, accelerating.
We'll come around the first Lesmo into another DRS detection point. So we'll see if Nick backs off again. Now he's got behind him to worry about. That's going to be Luke Smith.
Luke Smith with a little wiggle coming out of Lesmos 2. DRS slot open for Nick Van Gelder as they head down towards Ascari. And he backs off again.
Okay, maybe Nick just wants this race to get settled again. There's not really been more than maybe 3 or 4 laps of uneventful racing. He'll have his opportunity coming out of Parabolica, but he's only allowing drivers to get closer to him behind him, so he's going to need to make this overtake.
It looks like Jesper Lempinen got to the inside of Luke Smith for that 5th position heading into the Parabolica, but it's kind of bottlenecked the rest of the cars, and it looks like we might have another 3 or 4 wide situation here for the 5th position. That is now Sandro down to the inside. Van Gelder finally gets around Lewis Marshall for the 3rd position. Sandro moves up into the 5th position. Luke Smith falls back into 7th, and he looks like he's going to fall into the clutches of Noah Smith. Noah Smith's going to try and get to the inside of Luke Smith. No relation. Hards versus mediums, and it looks like Noah's going to lose out on that one. And here comes Dion Stahl. So Luke Smith's hard compound strategy as he loses the back end through Lesmos 1, almost went around. His strategy is not paying off.
Yeah, Luke Smith and Lewis Marshall on the same strategies. I'm wondering when they're going to finally call it quits on the hard compound to stay competitive with these other drivers out here.
And Sandro just got around Lewis Marshall for the 4th position, so he moves up another spot. Meanwhile, Oleski out in front to the tune of 5.5 seconds over Tim Ventic, and he's got a 2.5 second gap over Nick Van Gelder.
Yeah, if you're Koivuniemi, just head down and do your own thing and hope everyone behind you stays out of trouble so there's not another safety car and you lose all this hard work again.
So Lewis Marshall, looks like Dion Stahl's now getting around Luke Smith heading through the Parabolica.
Yeah, those hards got to be done for both Lewis Marshall and Luke Smith, so I suspect they're going to be coming in maybe at the end of lap 14 here.
And it looks like things are finally settling down just a little bit. Got a little bit of a battle going on back here. You've got Dion Stahl running in the 8th position, followed by Luke Smith, who's got David Rod all over the back of him. Rod trying to work his way back towards the front before that safety car incident.
I should think coming around Lesmo here, he'll have Luke Smith. DRS detection right there. Going to have a short DRS zone, but David Rod, oh, in the back end again for Luke Smith, a little loose.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a car around. Is that Christian Dorman? Yep, looks like Christian Dorman's gone around at the second chicane.
Oh, David Rod taking it on the outside of Ascari, now the inside.
Ooh, that was a ballsy move from David Rod, and Luke Smith, he's all over the back of him, might be able to get it back.
Definitely some debris picked up by David Rod. He went off track a little bit there, so it might have been a track limits warning for David Rod. But he gets the overtake done.
And Luke Smith is staying out on track, not coming into the pits. And here we have Lewis Marshall going around Jesper. No, that's Jesper going around Lewis Marshall. But look at Noah Smith to the inside. Oh, 2 for 1. Great move by Noah.
Yeah, he certainly has the grip advantage over Jesper and Lewis Marshall. So nice work. Use the tires while you still have it to get as much position as you can. The ERS light is flashing, though, so he'll be vulnerable coming out of Lesmo.
Meanwhile, Sandro Duilius has caught the back of Nick Van Gelder for the 3rd position, and this is a battle we don't get to see much. Two veterans of the sport and of the league.
And just personally, even racing, I think they have history.
Yeah, we don't get to find them on track fighting for a podium position too often together, so great showing for these two drivers. And 3-second time penalty for Luke Smith cutting corners. That's going to end up costing him. Him and Lewis Marshall really need to come in and get them tires swapped out.
Right. Luke Smith, just again, you can see the loss in traction on exits from especially the Lesmo curves. So,
and here comes Sandro with a full head of steam on Nick Van Gelder. There's nothing Nick's going to be able to do about it. Sandro up into 3rd position. Great
nice,
move.
Clean overtake. Check back in with Koivuniemi just to make sure he's still here. 6.5 seconds on Tim Bentinck now.
Yeah, this is a Sunday drive right now for Oleski. Is he just...
Yeah, no one else on screen when we're watching Koivuniemi right now as he comes around Lesmo into Ascari here after the straight.
Tim Ventick's got a bit of a gap over Sandro Duilius, but that battle for 3rd's not done yet. Nick Van Gelder trying to come back just a little bit. He's got the DRS slot open on his car, so they head down towards Ascari. Meanwhile, Jesper Lempinen and Noah Smith still battling it out. They're side by side. Woo! Through Ascari, and Noah Smith's going to pick up that position over Jesper Lempinen.
And concurrently to that, David Rod up into P7. So the 8-lap-old mediums making quick work at the 15-lap-old hard compound now for Lewis Marshall.
You know, it almost makes me wonder if Lewis and Luke at this point are going to try and run the hards to where they can run the softs to the end.
I mean, there's plenty of, again, it's the highest speed track on the calendar, and there's quite a few overtaking opportunities, but they're really going to have to make a lot of overtakes if that's the strategy.
Speaking of which, Jesper Limpinen just overtook Noah Smith to retake the 5th position back. And Nick Van Gelder looks like he's creeping in on Sandro Dolius. Might think about making a move down towards the 2nd chicane. Sandro takes a little bit of a defensive line. Ooh, and Nick loses the back end coming out of the 2nd chicane.
Noah Smith getting the overtake done on Jesper, but Jesper going to have the better exit.
Oh, and they're side by side heading through Lesbos too.
And I'm not even sure which of the two of them might have DRS. It looks like it's actually Noah Smith ahead of Jesper who had the DRS.
That is crazy. Oh, and Jesper loses the front end a little bit. Looks like he got some aero wash over the front wing. And here comes David Rod. He's going to go to the outside. And David Rod's going to pick up the position for 6th. So Jesper Limpinen struggled a little bit through Ascari, loses 2 spots.
So David Rod, a good recovery after the restart, but again, he started on medium, he pitted for medium tires. He's going to need another pit stop regardless of how everything shakes out here. So speaking of, Lewis Marshall, Luke Smith maybe going very, very long in the hard compound, David Rod kind of in a similar situation here.
It makes you wonder, too, if it was by design or if it was by mistake. And if it was a mistake, does David Rod even know that he has to make another pit stop? Meanwhile, Nick Van Gelder and Sandro Dolius battling it out for this 3rd position again. Nick's being a little bit more reserved today than I've seen him in the past.
This is so far one of his best races, and just in pure terms of position. So I understand it. I would be the same way. I've got good points here. I don't want to get crazy. I don't want to not finish this race at this point. So Nick's definitely maybe leaving some overtakes on the table that he shouldn't, but right now this is his best finish of the season if it stays like this.
Well, and Nick and Sandro, because they haven't been battling too hard necessarily, Sandro's been able to creep up on the backside of Tim Bentic. So he's now within DRS range if he can hit the timing line. But it looks like Tim might actually go into the pits. Nope, not this time.
Van Gelder's also been able to manage ERS. You see Sandro and Tim Benting both flashing, so Nick Van Gelder, he might be well positioned here as we get into the final third of this race. He might have full battery. His tires might be in better shape than they usually would be. So he's taking it, just nice and easy right now. I think positioning himself for a strong finish here.
Well, and we saw him earlier when we were riding on board. He was backing off early some of these corners and not doing the expected overtake that we thought would be coming. So I got to say, it's a very mature drive from the Season 4 champion. He hasn't driven like this in quite some time. Great run for Sandro and for Nick Van Gelder. And realistically, this is the closest battle we've got going on. Sandro creeping up on Tim Bentic, bringing Nick with him. Jesper Limpinen is still within a second of David Rod, but other than that, this is really the battle for the podium is what we're looking at.
Yeah, Koivuniemi 7.6 up. If you just showed me an Aston Martin in front with a gap that large, I would assume Jensen was racing this week, but that is the Finnish driver Aleksi Koivuniemi looking like it's his race to lose.
Sandro's got a head full of steam heading down towards turn 1. He's going to go by Tim Bentic. They're side by side as they get to the corner. And it looks like Bentic is going to lose out on that. So Sandro up into second spot. But doesn't look like Ventic's done with him. He's all over the gearbox as they head through turn 2.
Maybe Ventink also trying to get a little bit of battery back. But again, the DRS coming out of Parabolica has been so big. It's, I think on lap 26 you want to be maybe behind the driver you're looking right at in front of you so you can get that overtake done before the end of the race.
And ironically, working lap 20 of 27, and Lewis Marshall and Luke Smith still have yet to pit.
We mentioned those two, but Christian Dorman also a very long stint on some hard compounds, 18 laps old for him, and 3 drivers with penalties in front of him. Of course, quite a bit of a gap to be on stall, but maybe Christian Dorman could find his way up the table as this race comes to a conclusion.
So Tim Ventic now with the DRS advantage, and it looks like he's going to try and go around the outside. Sandro's going to squeeze back in, shut the door on Nick Van Gelder. And they swap second and third spots once again. While this battle is going on, Noah Smith is starting to creep into the picture here. 1.6 seconds behind this 3-car battle. So things could heat up here as we get towards the end of this race.
Yeah, you would think Nick Van Gelder is going to have to push at some point. You know, it's fine to build your resources, wait for the opportunity, but 6.5 laps left to go. At a certain point, you need to get around these two so that the drivers behind you don't just keep getting bigger in your rearview mirror.
Through Ascari, down the back straightaway, and yeah, Noah Smith is now a part of this battle. He is within DRS range of Nick Van Gelder. So we've got second, third, fourth, and fifth, all within striking distance of each other as they come down the front straightaway. So who's going to do what as they come down this front straightaway? DRS's slot is open for Sandro. He's going to go to the inside of Tim Ventic.
Just a slingshot past Tim Ventic there.
And I think you're right. I think now's the time Nick needs to start thinking about trying to get past at least one of these cars to put himself in a podium position.
Yeah, Noah Smith obviously was pushing to get within DRS of Nick, and it's worked. And, you know, now Nick, instead of just kind of taking his time, biding his time behind these two, he's got to be on the defensive here from Noah Smith.
And Ivan Brito just got around Lewis Marshall for the 8th position, so good to see Ivan up into the points. Senna Haywire in the other Haas running in 10th, even though he's got a timing penalty. Good to see him in the points as well. And it looks like that battle between Lewis and Ivan is not done. Looks like Lewis just took that position back.
And Lance, you called it, Luke Smith has gone in for softs after a very long stint on the hard compound. So now is the pressure on Lewis Marshall to finally come in. I mean, I don't think we're in undercut territory, but if they're working the same strategy, now would be the time for Lewis.
And they both have timing penalty. Well, actually, Lewis does not have a timing penalty, so Luke's really at a disadvantage. If anything, he'll take away the fastest lap, and there's a caution flag flying in Sector 2. Uh-oh, virtual safety car. This is bad news, Bears, and who is that for? Is that for...
That is going to be George Wilkes. There is wing just on the track there. You see it on the white line on the outside coming into the first Lesmo curve. No wing at all on the front for George Wilkes.
So this is going to be a little bit disappointing. Race control. 5-second penalty for Lewis Marshall.
Lewis Marshall.
Speeding in the pit lane.
So the discount for the pit stop during a VSC just immediately undone for Lewis Marshall. That hurts.
And look at this. Senna Haywire doesn't pit. He stays out and moves up into 7th. David Rod comes in.
Okay, 2-stop strategy for David Rod. This worked out perfectly for him. Medium, medium, soft, all during a safety car. So
Luke Smith, drive-through penalty, speeding under virtual safety car. So Luke Smith's day is essentially done. This has not worked out the way that Luke wanted it to at all.
For me, I got to keep an eye on David Rod. I think he's got a strong chance at really making this a battle here in the last few laps.
And we are back to green flag racing. Sandro Dulius running in the 2nd position. He's got Tim Ventic all over the back of him as they head through Ascari. Nick Van Gelder up into 4th. Noah Smith is running in the 5th position. Meanwhile, your leader, Oleski, is out in front to the tune of 5.5 seconds. So he did lose a little bit of time through the course of that virtual safety car, but inconsequential to the overall race.
Yeah, with the way the battle is going behind him, I think Koivuniemi is, losing a couple seconds here on his gap does not concern him. We got 3.5 laps, just under 4 laps to go, and the battle for P2 is at least 4 cars deep.
Oh, and a little bit of a A little bit of a bump there from Tim Ventic to Sandra's rear gearbox. He wasn't close enough to make the move. I don't think it was on purpose. Just a little deep on the brakes.
And David Rod got a drive-through penalty, so much for keeping an eye on what he can do with the soft compounds, because his race also going to be severely compromised.
Well, Luke Smith does set the fastest lap of the race, but that's not going to matter with all the penalties and all the mayhem that he's had to go through in the last couple of laps.
So yeah, it's definitely a race for the first 5 positions at this point. I think Jesper Limpinen kind of locked in at P6 with all the penalties just behind him in the gaps. So this is where the action's going to be.
I mean, the gap hasn't dropped a lot, but Oleski is losing time to this battle for second. It is now under 5 seconds.
He's definitely taken the medium longer than it was intended to go. But yeah, I think it's just not enough real estate in front of Sandro Dulis to make up the difference in tires as Tim Ventink goes inside on Sandro.
And here comes Noah Smith to the inside of Nick Van Gelder. And Nick's going to lose out on a couple spots there, so he's going to drop back into 5th. Sandro able to hang on to 3rd, but for how long? Tim Ventic now with a little bit of a gap over Sandro. And David Rod runs the fastest lap of the race on softs. He's currently running in the 8th position. He could...
He does have a drive-through, though, so I think David Rod, it's just some bragging rights, fastest lap, maybe. Two and a half laps of racing to go here. Tim Ventink, Sandro Dulis, Noah Smith, they've been exchanging P2, P3, and P4. Nick Van Gelder's always in the shot, but we haven't really seen him be the aggressor, and he does not have too many more miles in front of him to make anything stick.
Yeah, I think Nick has been a little bit more reserved, which, to his benefit, years past, races past, even this season, you know, he hasn't been able to put together the finishes that I think he expects of himself and we expect of him as a driver. So, you know, maybe a top 5 is all he's looking to gain and put on the board today as Sandro goes back in front of Tim Ventic for the 2nd spot.
Noah Smith took a peek there. Noah's tire's definitely going to be screaming at this point, so I think if you're Noah, hey, if Nick's going to allow you to finish in front of him, take it. Because Noah Smith's definitely going to have the worst tires of this group of 4 here.
And David Rod is doing his drive-through as he heads into the pits. So, top 6 drivers, no penalties. Things are going to be a little weird from 7th to 10th as far as the points go for the end of this race.
Koivuniemi coming around Parabolica. Oh, excuse me, that's the other Aston Martin of Luke Smith. I'm getting a little excited. I'm a huge Alexei Koivuniemi fan. I'm excited for him to get what looks like will be his first win of the season.
Yeah, Lesky coming out of Ascari. And it looks like that gap, he lost a bunch of time, but it looks like that gap is kind of settled at the 4.2, 4.3 seconds. You can see the 4-car battle behind him as they come down the back straightaway. Noah Smith taking a peek at Tim Ventic. And if you're going to make a move, now's the time. Sandro's going to be a sitting duck. As they come down this front straightaway, Tim Ventic's going to have the DRS. He's all over the gearbox. Sandro's going to make him go to the outside. Nick Van Gelder making a move on Noah Smith to the outside. Oh, he's still side by side. He's not going to be able to make it stick. Oh, there's contact. And now Nick Van Gelder gets to the inside of that. Sandro might have... Oh, he's got a 3-second time penalty for cutting the corner, and...
I mean, these track limits, you know, under contact, it could be revoked, but hey, you know, we said Nick needed to get something done. He kind of stayed back, and he had the benefit of some contact in the chicane in front of him. So Nick Van Gelder's looking at a podium here, potentially, which I think even Nick would tell you he might not have expected. I know Jensen and Logan not racing today, Freya Balai not racing, but the Red Bull of Nick Van Gelder looking good for some big points today. And Tim Ventink also looking like a lock for P2.
Looks like we lost Juan Rivas for some reason, but that's really inconsequential here in the last lap. So Oleski coming out of the Parabolica. His first win of the season, his first win in a long time.
Third in the drivers' standings last season. You see there a little celebratory wiggle by the wall. What a drive for the Finnish driver, Aleksi Koivuniemi. Tim Venting coming across start finish in P2. Nick Van Gelder coming across in fourth, but with the penalties moves to a podium himself, and the automatic driving at the end gives Tim Venting a little damage. That doesn't matter.
Jesper Lempinen comes across sixth. And surprisingly, Senna Haywire with one of his better finishes, coming across seventh, even with the timing penalties. Oh, but another 5-second time penalty for an unserved penalty. So is Lewis Marshall. Ivan Brito, been quiet all day. He's going to come across the line in ninth. And Dion Stahl, he's going
the penalties.
He's going to lose out on that. So David Rod picks up a point. Christian Dorman.
The hero, 26 laps on the hards with Christian Dorman. He said, I only want to pit once.
Here comes Luke Smith with a tumultuous day, finishing 13th. Robin Herderstegen, didn't see or hear much of him all day, unfortunately. The McLaren coming across the line, 19 seconds behind of the 13th spot, Luke Smith. He'll finish 14th. And George Wilkes will round out the 15 drivers to finish the race. So, definitely an interesting race. We had the safety car early. We had the broken lobby.
Yeah.
Driver of the day, Senna Haywire. And you know what? I will agree with the game for a change. I will give the driver of the day to Senna. He doesn't often finish a race, let alone finish in the points.
Well, you can vote on the driver of the day on the Instagram for SRL F1, but for me, it's hard not to give it to the man on screen right now, Aleksi Koivuniemi, Finnish driver. I think along with Koivuniemi, Nick Van Gelder had an amazing drive today, keeping it nice and clean, managing the race, and then, having the benefit of some contact in front of him at the chicane on the final lap. So what a drive for all three drivers on the podium, really. I think if you had asked me my predictions on the podium, not one of them would have been Koivuniemi, Ventink, and Van Gelder.
Yeah, and two former champions, Ventink and Van Gelder, both on the podium. Yeah, it's definitely a great result. So obviously unofficial results for now, but be sure to check us out on Instagram. You can vote for your driver of the day there. Get caught up on all the news and notes from today's race throughout the course of the week. Oleski with the win. Tim Ventik is second. Nick Van Gelder third. Noah Smith fourth. Sandro Dulius is fifth. Jesper Lempinen sixth. Senna Haywire is seventh. Lewis Marshall eighth. Ivan Brito ninth. And David Rod rounding out your top 10 points paying positions for today's race.
Well, join us for Singapore round 18 next week. If Jensen races, there's a very good chance that you might have a Drivers' Championship crowned. We'll also see, hopefully, the return of some of our other drivers close to a full grid. Vincenzo Torre with the podium at Singapore last year. The other podium finisher was Logan Orend. We hope for Logan to return, but we shall see. That'll do it for round 17. This is Brian, and Lance, I will let you sign off for us.
Be sure to like and subscribe and comment to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Instagram for all the news and notes. And we will see you guys in the next round.